The show where anything goes. Motivation, mindset, recovery, philosophy, and life. We become who we are through what we experience. We all have a story, and this is My Backstory with Josh Boyer.
All right, here we are. My Backstory podcast, lucky number 7, with Muscle Mom of 2. So basically, again, there's no script to this. There's no questions. There's no anything. This is the first time we're meeting. We talked maybe for 5-10 minutes before we started recording. So I just want you to get a chance to share your story and to, what's your backstory? Like, where'd you come from? Where are you from? Where were you born? Kind of what you've experienced over life and where you're headed, what you're working on now, and where you're headed. So
wow, cool.
I'm going to let you take it away.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh, where do I begin? I guess where you just said where I was born. I was actually born in the Midwest, outside of Chicago. My parents are both Midwestern people.
Nice.
And we moved briefly to Texas when I was a little baby. And then we moved to the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, nice.
So that's where I grew up, is up there in the Bay Area, where it's
Love
the melting pot of everything. And it's pretty cool.
It's quite a contrast from the Midwest and Texas, for sure.
Exactly, Midwest, Texas. But both of my parents worked in tech. They worked Silicon Valley. My mom and dad both, this was 80s and 90s. They were in Silicon Valley. They worked for Apple and IBM and Sony and all those places. Yeah, my mom too. She's pretty badass.
That's cool. What's where in Texas were you guys? Were you guys in Austin?
We were in Dallas, but this was the early 80s. I was born in 1979.
Okay.
So I don't remember anything about Texas or Chicago.
Yeah, I lived in Texas for 4 years, and but I was in Austin. I go to Dallas quite a bit though.
Yeah, I've been back since then, but I don't remember living there.
So all your memories are pretty much San Francisco,
California. Yeah,
I love San Francisco.
And I had the same boyfriend all through high school, 16 to 21, and it was about that age when I was like, wow, I feel like I need to get the hell out of this place. Yeah. Not that it was a bad place to grow up. It was great, but it was just, I broke up with him and felt like I needed to spread my wings a little bit. So that's when I moved to San Diego.
Wow.
And I did to go to San Diego State. And with my girlfriends, we just moved down, and it was my start at living on my own and all that fun stuff.
How exciting.
Living in PB, though, it was a little crazy.
PB is nuts. It's insane.
It was nuts then, and it's still nuts.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was it was an experience, college, crazy party time. And then I met the guy who became my husband for a lot of years. He was a Marine. At the time, he was a drill instructor.
Those damn Marines.
I know. He was a Marine. He was a drill instructor at MCRD, and he had already been in 7 years when we met, and he ended up doing a full 20. So we were married about 12 of those 20 years, together about 14 of those.
Oh, wow.
And there was a lot of years where we met right after September 11th happened.
Oh, wow.
It was a week. No, we met a week before September 11th happened. And I didn't really think much of him being a Marine until that shit went down.
Oh, yeah.
And then
things changed.
I was like, wow, that means things are definitely going to be changing. And that's when he was preparing to go to war, and this scary times. This was 2001, 2, 3. I moved to San Diego in 2001 and met him shortly after. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. But we got married in 2003, and right after we got married, actually, one of the groomsmen in our wedding was killed in action in Iraq about 3 months later. He was in our wedding, and I just remember I was at work, and he called me, and he was emotional. He was a mess. He could barely speak. And he saw it on the news. That's how he learned. He saw it on the news, and he thought he was hoping that it was not true, but it was. And that was 2005. It was really hard. Iraq was really bad then. Yeah. It was a really bad place. And then he was preparing to get deployed there. And his first year, he spent a year in Iraq, and we didn't have kids yet. I was just kind of working and partying with my friends, going to happy hours, just trying to Cope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And that was 2006. Is before we had FaceTime and Skype, and he barely got to call. I never even heard his voice. Once a month, maybe he'd have a quick call, and it would be like with wind blasting him. He'd be on top of a Humvee with, it was, hard to hear him. And it was just email. So we emailed for like a year. That was our relationship. And it was hard, but it was actually like a blessing in disguise. I look back at that because it let us communicate a little bit differently than we were kind of forced to write things out to each
It's a
other.
trip though, right? When you look back on those times, you're like, how did we get by without FaceTime,
I
without
know.
like all these abilities to like, you can text message from another country.
Right.
I mean, all this like WhatsApp and all these other, it's like nuts. How people are like, dude, how did you guys keep your marriage together? That's insane.
I don't know. It was
But
hard. So he went 7 months, and then he had 2 weeks of leave. And we took a trip to Seattle and just kind of did some fun stuff for the 2 weeks of leave. And then he went right back for another 5 months. And then he was home long enough to like get me pregnant, and then and then leave again. But yeah, those other years, 2007, I was pregnant with my daughter, and he was gone again. And
was he home when she was born or not?
yeah, luckily he was there for the birth of both babies, but
Oh, that's awesome.
missed pregnancy. So I just missed it on the foot rubs and the. But I used him, like I utilized his love and care when he was around.
Yeah,
go
totally.
get me French fries and lemonade. But yeah, it was tough. And what I would do is just drive the kids and the dogs, or the kid and the pregnant belly and the dogs. I would drive them out to Phoenix and stay with my mom and get help from grandma and
Yeah,
support from grandma. And otherwise, but it was funny. I did take my maternity leave when I had my daughter, and I had this great job that I really loved. Right out of college, I worked at a spinal cord injury recovery center.
Oh, awesome.
And it was completely out of the box thinking. It was the first kind of its kind, because before that, recovery was not an option for spinal cord injury. So spinal cord injury basically means, they've had some sort of damage or injury to the spinal cord itself, which
Right.
causes paralysis or loss of mobility or function. So that was such a good thing for me to have that job at such a young age when I was impressionable. And I saw these people who, 1 second their life changed forever because of some freak accident. A girl got pushed into a pool and broke her neck on her birthday. Someone would dive into sandbars, surfing,
Yep.
Car accidents, lots of car accidents, lots of people with BMX racing, all kinds of the extreme sports, lots of crazy events. But, in one moment, their life was changed forever. And so many of them still had so much hope and were so positive, and were just like, grateful for what they still had, that they didn't die,
Yeah.
that they still had their family. And I don't know, it's just really good perspective for me at a young age in my early 20s to be exposed to that kind of gratitude and dedication.
It's like a
And
soldier's mentality. It's
Yeah.
like you just keep pressing on. It's like when you think, kind of makes you put things in perspective. You see your life and what kind of problems you have, and it's like usually when you see things like that, it's like pales in comparison. You're like, you have no
Absolutely.
idea.
Like when some of these people can't even brush their own teeth anymore,
Right.
they literally need caregivers all
Yeah.
the time. And I just thought, wow. And it was very rewarding too, because a lot of these people were told they would never walk again. And we would get them out of their chairs and, 2 or 3 hour sessions at a time, getting them on a table where I would be moving their limbs in different planes and ranges of motion, and telling them to think, push, pull, circles, like they would be connecting their brain with their body again. And so I saw results. We
Yeah.
saw things that the medical professionals would be like, it's impossible.
I think it's like coming around, right? Like, have you ever read
Yes.
Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo?
I have not, but I've heard about it, and
That's-
I gotta add that to my
That's
list.
fucking amazing. But anyway, he got hit by a car, and he's riding his bike in Palm Springs, I think, and like shattered his spine. Like he was a mess. And they told him the same thing. Oh, you need surgery. You need to be operated on. You need this. I don't think he was paralyzed, but he just used his mind and
Yeah.
was like, no, I'm gonna stay in a state of like meditation. I think he went to La Jolla actually at his buddy's house and was like
Absolutely.
just meditating like nonstop and picturing himself like being healed and being good to go. and his body just took care of himself. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's hocus pocus, that's bullshit. And it's like,
Ugh, I saw it.
I'm telling you, it's not.
I saw it with my own eyes all
Right.
the time. And, it was one of those things where we were kind of like, it was a grueling job. We were picking up paralyzed bodies
yeah,
and
definitely.
limbs and putting ourselves into precarious positions and really like backbreaking work sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was 100% worth it. We all loved our clients. We got very, very involved and dedicated to these clients and their recovery. And so that was my first real job out of college. That was like my first career. I mean, I was a personal trainer during college at the YMCA. And I had been studying the body for years before that, just out of my own fascination.
Yeah.
But that job for 5 years right out of college was probably the best thing that set me up for so many great things.
It's awesome.
And, I as I was pregnant, I could no longer do the work, the physical labor, and they like promoted me into more of a managerial position. So then I was like going more office. I had more of an office-y job at the tail end there.
Right.
And at that point I was managing the floor and the staff and doing the job of like 5 people.
Yeah.
And, but I loved it. And then when I went back after my 3-month maternity leave, and I put my daughter in the childcare, and I sat at my desk, and I was so pumped. And then I just noticed, like, it was just 3 months of being gone, all these other people doing my job. It was just scattered all over. I had no idea where the status was on anything. And
Right.
I just felt so lost. I'm like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And when I went to pick my daughter up from that first day, I walked into the childcare center, and I noticed that the staff kind of like quickly like perked up and thought, oh, they looked at me like, oh, you're here. I looked over at her. She was propped up on a boppy pillow and crying her eyes out. And she was 3 months old.
Wow.
And that was the first time I'd ever left her. That was the first time I actually had ever seen actual tears coming out of her eyes.
Wow.
And it broke my heart. And I just thought, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, totally.
And so the next day I went back into work, and I wrote my letter of resignation,
Good for you.
and I said, peace out. And I left, and I went and picked my daughter up, of course, my husband at the time was deployed. And I couldn't even talk to him about it. I couldn't even it's usually one of those things that you go and
have a discussion about.
But we had discussions about it earlier, about the possibility of not. And so it wasn't that I just like threw it on him. We had discussed it before, but it wasn't in that moment. I didn't get to talk to him about it.
Did you want to be like a stay-at-home mom? Like when you knew you were having kids, were you like, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom, or were you like, I'm going to be a career woman?
I always thought I always was a career woman.
Really?
Yeah.
I always wondered that, like, if like, I mean, because I have, obviously I have friends that like there's 2 separate sides to the deal, where there's some women that like they want to work and they want to have kids at the same time. There's other ones that are like, no, like I'm meant to stay home. I want to be home with my kids.
And it's funny. I think that oftentimes you don't know the answer until you actually become a mom, where you're at. And I, pregnancy, I was leading up to it. I loved my job. Like I said, I had this job that I loved. I loved the clients. But there were just different signs kind of telling me that it wasn't the right thing, at the moment. But yeah, leading up to it, when I told my bosses that I was pregnant, they like looked horrified, like I was going to leave them.
Right.
And I thought, no, don't worry. I'm a career woman. I got this. But it was just like the draw for me to be home with my daughter and bonding with her, especially since her dad was gone. I just felt like I don't want someone else to be seeing all the firsts and not me, and not her dad.
That makes sense.
And it was the right thing for me. And we got help from the family, and, we made it work. And then, what I did? I actually started an Etsy shop, and I started making jewelry and selling. I was like, I needed something to do.
Whatever works.
I needed something. I felt like I needed something. So I started rolling paper beads and making jewelry.
That's awesome.
Out of like recycled magazines. And then I was actually selling stuff online. And it was like the kids would nap and I'd be like rolling paper beads.
That's
I
so
actually
awesome.
did. I had to have a hustle.
Yeah, definitely.
I had to feel like I was contributing besides just like cooking and cleaning and changing diapers.
I always wondered from a woman's perspective, because I know, like, I think guys, we get so stuck in like, oh, we're providing all the money. I have these conversations with my cousin, she's a stay-at-home mom and my wife's a stay-at-home mom. And it's like, there's discussions about like the contribution, right?
Right.
But it's like, as a guy, like I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that contribution, the money doesn't mean shit. You know what I
No.
mean? Like, it's like at the end of the day, if I'm being honest with myself, it's like when I go to work, like I'm away from all the responsibility. Like
Yeah.
I'm out hanging out with guys I work with or girls I work with. I get to go to lunch uninterrupted by my kids.
Oh my
I
gosh.
mean, there's actually a lot of freedom in that. And I think like some guys, like they play it up like, oh, here I am, just I gotta go to work. And then it's like, it's way harder to stay home.
Absolutely.
I mean, way harder.
I mean, the stay-at-home mom does the equivalent of like 15 jobs.
Definitely.
I feel like.
I never really understood it though. I didn't understand it. I didn't appreciate it at all until after this last back surgery. And then I was home like all the time. And I got to see firsthand, like, oh shit. Like this is a lot of, they're like little dictators, you know what I mean? Like you have to do everything for them. And we have like the newborn. I mean, I have an 11-year-old and then we have a newborn, a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Oh,
so it's like,
my gosh.
it's a lot of action. You know, the 11-year-old, I mean, he's totally like self-sufficient and good to go. But the other 2 and 3-year-old, like, oh my God, like when one of them wants something, then the other one, like you'll sit down, the other one wants something. It's like,
it's craziness.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It is nuts. And I don't know if it's better or worse to have them close together or spread apart, or if it's just, but you're outnumbered. So
oh yeah,
I
totally.
think you're screwed either way.
I mean, having boys, I think for me is like, it's easier for us because they're a little bit, I think it's just easier. Everyone I've talked to is like, oh, if you had all girls, they'd be way different and way harder. They're harder to handle and this and that. The boys are kind of like, I don't really care if they're dirty sometimes, you know, like I can like, it's like, dude, I don't care. Like your boys go play. Like it's all good, you know?
Sure. Kids should be getting dirty.
Yeah, for sure. So it's like, there's like just a difference, I think, with having a boy and a girl, I think.
Absolutely.
But anyway.
Absolutely. And so I was home with the kids for a couple of years after my kids are only 2 years apart. So my daughter had just turned 1 and he was back from deployment and got me pregnant again. And so they're only, what a jerk. And I was like, you did this on purpose. And he just laughs. But just kind of, I was like about to go to the doctor and get back on the pill.
Right.
And he knew that, but he had other plans. Like that. And I remember just calling him when I found out that I was pregnant for the second time, and I remember calling him crying, going, "What you did this to me?" And he's just like, "Calm down. It's a good thing." I know it's a good thing. It just freaked me out because she had just turned 1, and I was just like, "Holy shit, what are we doing so close together?" Yeah. But actually, now I'm so glad that it happened that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Like my oldest boy is from my first marriage, and then the next 3 are with my current wife, and I'm glad that we did it so close. I mean, like a newborn 2 and 3. I mean, they're so close in age where it's like knock it all out, get it done with. They'll all be out of diapers, and it'll just be a lot easier to like do stuff because like right now it's like you feel like you're kind of trapped. You know, you're like I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything because like they're taking their naps, and if they don't get their nap, then they're fucking little terrorists. And it's terrible.
But I imagine just like being closer in age, I think there's more chance of them being close
as
they grow up.
And they kind of have a bond, especially the 2 and 3-year-old, right? The baby's just a tiny baby, doesn't just lays there. But the 2 and 3-year-old, they're like buddies, you know, like they hang out all day long. The 3-year-old's kind of a little dick to the 2-year-old, but the 2-year-old like is way bigger, and he's gonna end up whooping his ass when they get older for sure. But they it's cute to see them like before. It's so Brendan's my 11-year-old, and then I have Archer's the 3-year-old, Axel's the 2-year-old, and Arrow's the newborn. So whenever Axel's going to sleep, the 2-year-old, he'll like yell down, "I love you, Archer. I love you." No. It's just so cute to watch them together. It's awesome. Because I never thought that like I just didn't know, you know, like are they gonna be cool? Are they gonna even like each other? Like I don't know how this is gonna go down. And I mean he's kind of a dick to him during the day, but like at the end of the day
they're all gonna they're gonna be super close. Super close. It was right after my son was born that we actually got moved to Florida. And it was the only move that we've otherwise we had been in California and Southern California the whole time. All of his military career just was that besides the deployments, then he got moved to a small base in South Miami, actually.
Oh, wow.
And it was a base that had it's like was it Andrews Air Force Base? It's an Air Force base, and it had gotten wiped out by Hurricane Andrew 20 years ago. And so they had never completely rebuilt this base. They still fly in and out of it. And there was one active duty unit in there that's a mixed branch of everything. And there was only like I think he was one of 3 or 4 Marines.
Right.
And then, it
It's
was
kind of cool though.
kind of a mixed branch. Yeah, so it was cool. So I got to make friends with other military spouses who were just all different branches.
Right.
And so there wasn't.
When you realize that the Air Force was the best branch ever, and I mean, coming from an Air Force guy. But anyway.
I had some Air Force wife friends. Yeah.
Cool.
Everybody was cool though. And then I started actually working. I was doing private contract work with another spinal cord injury recovery center in Orlando. And so
calling you.
I know. And so I my kids at the time when we first moved, my son we drove from San Diego to Miami, and we were trailering my Mini Cooper. So we had all the stuff. We had the dogs, all of us in the SUV, trailering another car. Baby was a newborn. We didn't want to stop. We were like going through Texas, and I'm like, just keep driving, babe. Don't want to stop. I'd nurse him, just like leaning over the car seat.
So bad.
Yeah, I put up a blanket so the truck drivers wouldn't get a flash of the boobs. But I was like nursing him on the way there. I was like, just go for it. But yeah, once we got to Miami and it kind of settled in, I got called to do some private contract work in Orlando. So some of the time I was driving up to Orlando, and I would stay Monday through Friday, help them train staff. I was working with clients. I was training them. I was helping with them with the business. And then I'd drive home back to Miami for the weekend and then drive back. And sometimes he was gone on trips and I'd have to take the kids with me.
Oh, wow.
And they would figure out a sitter for me while I worked, which was pretty amazing. But it was one of those times where I was in Orlando for work, and I worked. It was a Monday. I worked the day. It was a great day. I had awesome sessions with clients. And then I went and picked the kids up from the sitter. I strapped them in my double jogging stroller, and I took them for a jog. I was like, trying to be fit mom.
Yeah,
and
sure. Were you fit at this point? Like, where now I could look at you and be like, yeah, you're super fit. But like, were you fit when you were with the kids?
I was not as fit as I was trying.
Oh,
but
okay.
I actually was, I did lift weights with my son, but I had more of a trouble getting the weight off with the second kid for some reason. And I've heard that, and I've seen that with a lot of other women. The first baby, the weight came off pretty quickly with nursing. And
were you into fitness like your whole life? Like,
yeah.
Was it like a fitness thing? Like, was that part of your deal? Like,
for sure. Like, my dad took me into the gym when I was 16.
Oh, okay.
So I started lifting weights. I learned how to lift weights with my dad at 16.
That's awesome.
And then I was the only chick in the weight room for many, many, many years. Many years.
Cool.
And now there's a bunch of chicks in the weight room. I think
they're all about it.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But I do think it's funny when I see people doing like workout routines or exercises or movements that they think they made up.
Right.
And it's like, no, dude.
It's been around forever.
We've been doing that shit for 20 years. Welcome to the club, dude.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was taking my kids for a jog that day, and this was in this like suburbs of Orlando, and I actually got hit by a car.
Holy shit.
And it was I was in a crosswalk on a green light, and I had the big double jogging stroller. It was like pretty hard to miss, but this woman, surprisingly, she was not texting. She was just dumb.
Wow.
Yeah, she just didn't look. She was looking at the traffic and it was busy. It was like 5 p.m. on a Monday. And I kind of looked at her and then looked at the thing, and it was green, and she was stopped, and it was traffic-y. I figured, okay, she's not getting in. But right when I was in front of her, there was maybe a little gap in the traffic, and she tried to punch it and get into it, and didn't see that I was right in front of her. So I kind of did this stunt woman move. Luckily, I had the leash for the stroller wrapped around my wrist. And so when I got hit and kind of went up onto the hood, it pulled the brake of the stroller. So the stroller tipped to its side and kind of skidded out into the intersection. And I went onto the hood with kind of on my left side and kind of strong-armed the hood of the car. I'll never forget that Honda emblem coming at my face. Never.
Oh, wow.
Like, I flash back to that all the time. But I kind of went onto the hood and then was catapulted about 10 or 15 feet to the ground. And the first thing I did was jump up to try to pick the stroller up.
Oh, for sure.
And all these people stopped, all these cars. It was in a busy intersection. All these cars and people stopped and ran over, and they told me to lay down. And I was concerned about my kids.
Yeah, definitely.
And but thank God they were fine. They had the 5-point harness thing.
Yeah.
It was, it was literally a jogging stroller. So it was one of those Bob strollers. It was pretty badass.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the kids were okay. My daughter was a little bit more shaken up, and she actually did need to go to some play therapy at 4.
Right.
She kind of understood what happened a little bit more. My son was 2; he didn't get it.
Right.
But my daughter was 4, and she had nightmares. I had to take her to therapy. She was drawing pictures with the therapist. It was like play therapy is kind of when they have the kids draw or paint or build something and talk about it. That was kind of the therapy.
Did you notice a difference from her doing it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good.
But she was having dreams of like a monster car coming with giant teeth and coming to eat me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah,
and then she was drawing things that were pretty scary, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And of course, guess who wasn't there?
Oh man.
Yeah, at that time, that's why I had to take the kids with me to that to the job, was because he was doing a training course in Washington D.C. So it was a 12-week course. He was kind of in the middle of it, and it was actually it was a surveillance course. It was like a spy course that was kind of fun. He got to stay in a hotel, and but I got hit by the car, and I was at the initial time. Of course, you have adrenaline flowing, and I didn't want him to worry, and I told him like, "Hey, this happened. We're okay." He was like, "Cool." The next day, I realized how injured I was, and how really fucked up I was.
Did you break any bones or anything?
Yeah, maybe I should go over my injuries.
Yeah, for sure.
So I had a broken foot, damage to both of my knees. My patellar tendons were damaged when I fell to the ground, I guess. A slap tear in my left shoulder, which is a superior labrum anterior to posterior. It means basically the labrum ligament completely detached from my shoulder.
Sure.
Broken wrist on that left side, so that left arm kind of got that impact and went all the way to my neck. And the slap tear still bothers me, but I had several herniated discs and bulging discs, and that was probably the worst of it. Was the 4 bulging discs, or I'm sorry, herniated discs in my neck, bulging discs all throughout my thoracic spine, and then several in my lower body, in the lumbar spine.
Damn.
Herniated. So they wanted to do all kinds of surgeries on me.
Right.
And of course, when you're injured head to toe in all these different areas, every doctor has their specialty. They have their part of the body, And so they were sending me to all these specialists, the wrist guy and the shoulder guy and the spine guy and the foot guy, and they all wanted to do surgeries. And I said, no, I don't think so. Just because I know so much about the human body and rehab and nutrition, and I know how addictive painkillers can get, and how they were just going to want to medicate. That's what they wanted to do with the insomnia. They just want to medicate, give me all these harsh, horrible things that give you terrible side effects. And I didn't want to take any of that crap. But
so what were you doing for the pain? Were you just muscling through it? Were you?
Yeah, they did a couple injections in the spine for the pain, blocks basically, almost epidurals, sort of,
for sure.
Which would help. But, I was and I went to physical therapy every day for 3 months. And of course, they had all these different areas to work on. Yeah. So it was I was there for hours. But, the injuries sucked. But really, it was me the day after the accident, on the phone with my husband, and I was always very independent. I've always been just handling shit,
For sure.
He's doing his thing, he's working, he's deployed, he's doing training, he's gone, and I would just handle the shit. And that's just, one day at a time, I would just handle it. And this was the first time that I was just sobbing on the phone to him, and I said, I fucking need you. I need you. He's like, no, you're fine. I said, no, I fucking need you. And I was, sobbing to him. Right. And I said, please come home. I need you. And he's like, yeah, you're fine. And he never came home. He didn't come home. And then I found myself, validating that, my friends would bring me dinners, basically. They knew I was fucked up. So I had sweet friends. They would bring me meals that I didn't have to cook and let me talk about it. And they'd be like, well, where is he? Why isn't he here? And I would say, oh, well, it's a really important course that he's taking. And, oh, it would, it's good for his career. He needs that, And looking back now, I realize, and talking to other Marines and other military people, they say he could have come home. He could have gone to this instructor and said, my wife got hit by a car. I need to go home and check on my family and maybe go back. But he didn't. And I just thought, okay, I still don't feel like, I don't have hard feelings for him because I feel like he just did what he thought was the right thing. And,
what he knew how to do.
Exactly. What he knew how to do. And he was so accustomed to me just being okay and me just being strong. I am a strong woman. Right. I have a strong voice. I am independent. And I think he just kind of knows that about me and was like, she'll be all right. She'll cover it. She'll get it. But, I had to fly my mom out from Phoenix because I couldn't lift my son over his crib rail. Right. My shoulder was jacked. My back was jacked. I couldn't stand on my foot. It was broken. And it was broken actually for 2 weeks before they actually found out that it was broken. Oh, wow. I was walking on it like a dumbass. I didn't know. It just hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, but it was another 6 or 7 weeks before he actually came home. And I was going to therapy. And the therapist said, well, this obviously it bothers you that he didn't come home and you need to talk to him about this. And he just wasn't one of many words, when I said, hey, this bothers me and that you didn't come home. And he said, oh, well, you said you were fine. And I said, I don't remember that conversation. I probably did say I was fine to make you feel better. But the next day I certainly told you that I was not fine. Right. And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders, Yeah. And that's probably when I kind of checked out of the marriage, was around that time when I just felt like that he maybe didn't, fuck, you're going to make me cry.
That's okay.
That maybe he didn't care about me as much as I had thought or hoped, and again, I don't have any hard feelings for him because I look at that moment as like my breakthrough. That was my breakthrough where everything in my life completely changed from that point. And it was hard and there was really shitty times, but right now, it was all for the better. It was all for the better. And I had to go through all that pain. And I don't know, in going through all that pain, I kind of learned how fucking strong I am.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you don't know how strong you are until you don't have another choice. You don't have another option. That's all you got.
And it was like physical strength, but also like emotional strength, and where I could be like, wow, this marriage maybe isn't the best for me. Maybe this relationship, maybe he's not the right person for me yet, and clearly he's not, and he wasn't. But I loved him and he loved me, and we went through a lot of stuff together, and we made 2 amazing kids. Our kids are fucking rad. And of course he's like hurt me and I've hurt him, and we've been divorced now for we had the divorce conversation. We started the divorce process almost 4 years ago. It took 2 years to get divorced. Oh, yeah. But and now we co-parent our kids, and like we're friends.
That's admirable.
We have to be friends.
A lot of people can't do it.
And because I just know how important it is for the kids to see us getting along. And, when I was 19, my parents split, and they had been married for 27 years. Fuck. 27 years. And it's at that point, I'm like, yeah, fucking figure it out. Come on. You've been married all this time. Years. They were like, they were high school sweethearts.
Do you think it was like a midlife crisis, or was it like a...
It's tough to say. That. I mean, my mom was going through menopause, and that makes women act a little differently. It's almost like PMS 24/7. Right. But oh gosh, that's a whole, like, they were 19. My brother had already left the house because he joined the Marine Corps, right. And so I was 19, still living at home, and we went to visit my brother. My dad and I went down there to visit my brother. And when we came back, my mom had moved out, And I had no idea it was coming either. It was a surprise to me. I had no idea.
Oh, wow.
So we came home and she had moved half the stuff out and left a letter. And so then I'm there consoling my dad.
Oh, wow. Not a good spot to be in.
No. And then I was this middleman person between my two parents who were starting to act like children and telling me different stories. And I'm like, who the hell is telling me the truth? This is bullshit. And they're fighting like children.
Yeah.
And that part made me think, okay, like when I got married at 23 or 24, so they had been divorced 5 years. My mom didn't want to she almost didn't want to like go to the wedding because he was going to be there.
Right.
It's kind of like, Mom, he's not going to. And he's like, I don't know. I don't get it.
Right.
So, yeah.
So you didn't want that for your kids?
No, I didn't want that for my kids. And that's why I just made a decision like, no, we're going to be friendly and I'm going to keep all of anything that he's done that's bothered me. I just need to like let it go.
It's a hard road to walk. I mean, I go through that with my 11-year-old, with my son, because, I was married to his mom and, now I'm married to my wife and we have our 3 kids. It's hard to stay on that friendly tip when the other side isn't on the same tip as you.
Absolutely.
Where it's like, hey, listen, like I want to be cordial and friendly and I'll give you as much as I can to keep that kind of, to keep it cordial. But it needs to be reciprocal. It needs to be like, hey, like a little give and take. And so that's been a challenge for me personally, where it's like, hey, so what works best for me, like in my situation, is I just disconnect completely, where it's like, I don't need to talk to you. We don't need to discuss anything. Like it's all a court order, like everything's in writing. And for me, that's the piece that I find is like, okay, we don't need to talk. There's nothing to discuss. Like it's all in writing. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Exactly.
And maybe that works too, but I know that my son picks up on the fact that there's not a relationship there. There's nothing. So like the way that it works is, when he's with his mom and his stepdad, that's where he is and he's there and they do their thing and they have their way of doing things. And when he comes with me and my wife and his stepmom, we do things different in our house, So it's like, he just gets like kind of like a difference of, perspective on things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know what's good or what's better. I mean, would it be better if his mom and I were like best friends?
No.
I don't know.
I just think it's just important to not badmouth the other person. That's
Right.
all. Like,
Right.
and I mean, the kids as they grow up, they're gonna, when they get older, they're gonna have more say in where they go,
Right.
because they have friends and social lives and different activities and things like that. But court order, we've got 60-40 split. I'm supposed to have 60 and he's supposed to have 40, but I've been going along with 50-50 for a long time.
Yeah.
Just because I know all of the stuff that he's missed and that they needed to build a relationship with him.
It's fucking awesome.
And I've never said anything bad about him in front of them.
I never understood the why there's people in the world that like they want to like kind of harbor, they like, use their kids like kind of like as a pawn almost,
absolutely.
where it's like, hey, listen, like I'm telling you I want to be there. I'm telling you I want to be their dad. I don't want to just be their father. I want to be their dad. But it's like, no, you can't. I'm gonna fight you tooth and nail for this. I never understood it. I never got it. And I went through it as a kid, even like with my dad and my mom, that they hated each other, despised each other, whatever the case may be. He left when I was, I think, 1. And you don't piece it all together until you're an adult. As an adult, I go back and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Cause like for the longest time, I harbored a lot of resentment towards my dad because I thought like, dude, you're never there. Like where were you when this and this happened? Like you were never there. And when I became an adult and I started to see like how vindictive and divisive like my mother was, I was like, oh wow, like she's evil, like she's a bad person. Like we don't have a relationship to this day. And it's like,
Wow.
but I started going back and looking at like things that happened in my childhood, and I'm like, oh, that's what happened. I mean, and don't get me wrong, it doesn't let my dad off the hook for not being around, but it makes more sense to me as to why there were certain things that happened and why he wasn't around when he could have been around more.
Totally.
And I think as a man, he probably compartmentalized and said, hey, like he was married too, and she had kids. They never had kids together, but she had kids. And he was like, like this is just easier for me to just stay away, because if I'm in the picture, I'm gonna have to deal with your mother. And it's not it's tough.
It
It's
is
hard,
tough.
you know. So I commend you for that, for like keeping that cordial, like, and knowing that like it's important that he's involved in their lives, you know.
Yeah. And he did 20 years in the Marine Corps, and we actually had the discussion to split like March of 2015. And he was leading into his retirement,
Yeah.
which I also noticed that he was acting a little differently, because I think he was scared.
Oh
He
yeah.
was scared about getting out. That transition that they make you do. You did 20 years in the Marine Corps, and that's pretty much all you know.
Yeah.
And that's where your power and your ego is kind of connected to. And
Totally.
he was leading into this, where am I going to work? What am I going to do? Because we live in Southern California, and you can't just live off military retirement
Oh,
where
yeah,
we
there's
live.
just no way.
There's no way. So you
Mhm.
have to. It's like, okay, what's my next career? And so I could see it was a tough time, and then all this changed. But the mutual conversation that I had been putting off for a long time finally happened early March, and we still lived together for 6 months after we had that conversation, which was pretty awkward.
I bet.
But we made it work, and luckily we had a guest room that we could each like have our own room,
Yeah.
and it was we had to be careful about. Well, I was very careful about what I told the kids, but what I started telling them at that age, they were only 6 and 8, I think, at the time,
Yeah.
and I just said, "Hey, it's not your fault. Um, the puzzle pieces are all still there and all put together make love, but they're going to go together a little differently."
Yeah.
That's what I told them, and that they were made out of love, and that it wasn't their fault, and that everything was going to be all right. And what the funny thing is that we went into his retirement ceremony June of 2015, just a few months later. We still lived together, and pretty much everyone knew that we were doing that except for his mother.
Oh wow.
He had not told his mother. His mother came down, and we had a bunch of family come into town for the retirement ceremony, and I was like, "Did you tell her?" "No." I'm like, "You freaking coward! You didn't tell her." He actually waited until he drove up there another time and told her in person later.
Yeah.
But yeah, we still did the retirement ceremony as a married couple.
Yeah.
With me in the ceremony and all that stuff, and there was just like there was one moment where he sat down next to me, and this was you've seen a retirement ceremony for like
Yeah.
20-year Marine kind of thing, and it's a big thing. And he looked at me, and he like put his hand on my leg, and we just smiled at each other. And because there's still love there,
Yeah. For sure.
but it wasn't
Romantic love anymore.
right. And there's just so many layers, and so many layers of that happen in 14 years worth of a relationship,
Huh.
where nobody could just look from the outside and know everything. It's just there's so many layers to it. But yeah, and then when he moved out, and then he took a job. He got a job that actually moved him to Chicago for a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
And they basically told him like, "Hey, you need to go to Chicago so you can be where headquarters are and train the guys and get acclimated, and then we'll let you work remotely. After a year and a half, you'll go back." But for a year and a half, during this crucial time of kind of just splitting and figuring that whole thing out, he was gone for all that time, and he'd come in for a weekend here and there if he was traveling for work, and see the kids and take them and do something fun and spoil them and buy them crap and feed them crap and then drop them back off,
Yeah.
and like, wow.
Good luck.
But, and I noticed, the kids had a really hard time.
I
And
bet.
that year and a half, it was hard on me. It was hard on them. I was a single mom 100%, and trying to date too. And that was interesting. But I would tell the kids, like, they would cry. There would be some nights my son would just cry all night, missing dad. I miss daddy. And, I'd say, "Hey, your dad loves you very much. He had to take this job. It had to take him over here, but he doesn't take away from the fact that he loves you, and he'll be back." And all the time, just constant reinforcement.
Yeah.
And it was tough, but it was around that time actually that I met Mike, and he kind of came in as a really positive male role model and father figure, but without ever trying to replace their dad. Obviously, it was he just was a good positive person to have around. And there was some time there where my ex was a little bit, um, I think, what's the right word? A little insecure about the relationship or the bond that they had kind of come on with Mike.
That's hard.
It is hard,
for a
and
dad. You're like, you're releasing. Um, I think it takes a lot of maturity to be able to be like, oh, this person like loves my son or my daughter or whoever,
yeah,
and that's okay. The more love they have, the better. And they're not replacing the relationship; it's completely different.
absolutely not.
That's
And my kids were kind of processing things and saying, well, they took to him really quickly. They absolutely adore him. And I actually met Mike as my son's drum teacher.
Oh, really?
So
He's a totally cool guy, so he's easy to like for sure. I can see
you
why they
can't
like
not
him.
like him. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's totally cool.
So before I met Mike, I read all his Yelp reviews.
Mhm.
And there's all these Yelp reviews that say so many amazing things. And I just pictured this old man for some reason. And then he shows up at my doorstep and I was like, oh, he's cute. Okay.
Did you guys like meet on like Tinder or something?
No, literally I found him on Yelp.
the jump class. Yeah,
I've
okay.
literally,
Yeah.
the really ironic thing is that my ex mother-in-law found him on Yelp. She got my son a drum set for Christmas and
Okay.
said, I'm going to find you a drum teacher that's local. And she found Mike on Yelp and gave
Interesting.
him my number.
Does she know the connection now?
Oh, for sure.
That's
After a
so
few
funny.
months when we started dating, I
That's
was
funny.
like, thanks for sending me my new husband.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was really
So
funny.
you have a good relationship with her still, like even though you guys are divorced?
We still talk, and I still make her a calendar every Christmas with all the kids' pictures in it.
Cool.
And I promised her I wouldn't stop doing that. I just add her to the mix of grandparents.
Is he remarried?
No, but he's got a girlfriend of about a year, and her name is Lori. And the irony is that my name is Lauren, but
Lauren and Lori.
yeah, my name is Lauren, but his sister's name is Lauren also. So he always called me Lori. Well, now he has a new girlfriend, and her name's Lori. So he's calling me Lauren, and it sounds just weird.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Like you can't escape the Laurens and the
Yeah.
Loris.
My stepbrother, he was married to Susan, and then they got divorced, and then he married another Susan.
Oh my
Yeah, Susan and Susan. So I could never do it. There's no way.
That's so funny.
No
What are
way
the
he did.
odds of that?
I don't know.
Seriously. So crazy.
Yeah.
But where were we at? We've been all over.
So he
the
was
place.
so he was in Chicago
Oh,
for
yeah,
a year and a
so,
half. You're holding it down. You met
holding
Mike.
it down. Met Mike. Then he came back into the mix and was in Temecula, so he was like a little bit further away.
Right.
And he just was pushing for 50-50. And I knew that no judge in the family court would allow him to take the kids all the way to Temecula and drive them to school in Oceanside and do
Right.
that thing. But I let it happen because I thought, I don't want to fight. That was number one. I don't want to fight with him.
Yeah.
And number two, I know the kids need time with their mom and their dad.
Yeah.
And three, he needed to build a relationship with them too and get to know them again. And so I just kind of like, we just did the 50-50. We've been doing every Friday, like the other person picks them up from school and has them for a week. And then, so
Amazing. Yeah, it's kind of like that was one of the discussions I had with my wife, like early on. Was like if anything ever happens to us, like if we can't figure out a way to make our relationship work or our marriage work, this is even before we were married. When we were talking about kids and stuff, she's like, I would never take your kids from you.
never.
Ever. She's
Well,
like,
because-
it's not whatever problems we had shouldn't bleed into the issues of you being a dad. You know what I mean? Like I know, she's like, I know your boy. Like now that I have boys, she's like, your boys need you. Like they need
Totally.
their dad. And like no matter what happens with us, you will be in their lives. And it's like even if I feel like it would never happen, but if I didn't want, I was like, I'm out of here. I'd try. She wouldn't allow that. She'd be like, no.
Yep.
Get your ass over here.
Absolutely. They need it. And I just think that there's nothing more detrimental to like your kids growing up if they hear one parent talking negatively about the other parent. It's like they look at both parents as like they're gods, they're heroes, they're superheroes, and then they get like one superhero speaking poorly about the other superhero, and then they're like so confused about life and everything, their whole world.
Right.
So it's just not cool. I've always been protecting the kids over everything. And, even arguing, I would say like, let's discuss this not in front of the kids, and,
Right.
and so we would, But don't get me wrong. There was some tough times during this divorce period where, I mean, there's just like flailing. There's also fear. There's being scared and
it's like a recipe for
worried.
disaster
And,
when you're going through a divorce,
and
because you have the
money
fear,
and-
the money, the financial stability. How am I going to start all over? I know that, like, for me, like when I got divorced, from my son's mom, I was I was super fearful, because it was like I didn't even know where to start again. It's like you're so like lost. Like it's like, oh man, like I'm gonna like I get an apartment somewhere, and then like, am I gonna date women? Like how am I gonna sell that? Like, oh, I got this kid, and it was just there's a lot of unknowns, and I
For
think that
sure.
it plays into why it's like a recipe for disaster if you're not careful, because like you have so many emotions are running high, and when you're making fear-based decisions, it's like it's never gonna be good.
No.
So
And
I
we
get
were
that.
really, really lucky in that we invested in real estate at a young age.
Hell
And
yeah.
so we had one house in Temecula that we used as a rental property that we
Check it
bought.
out.
We
That's
bought
awesome.
brand new in 2007, and we lived in it for a couple of years, and then we rented it out. And so it was a rental property. And then when we came back from Florida, we bought the house that I'm in now. And so when we split, I got one house and he got the other house.
Super cool.
So I own my house by myself.
That's pretty cool. By myself.
All by
Single.
myself.
That's pretty cool.
And so the kids have two awesome houses. He actually sold the Temecula house and moved closer. So,
That's awesome.
so now he's within 20 minutes, not 45, which is close, but not too close.
Yeah. Like I actually just moved to the city that I live in now. Like my son and his mom lives like 3 miles away, and I never, I was always about 20 minutes away or whatever. Like we lived about 20, 30 minutes. Ever since the divorce, I did not want to move to Rancho Cucamonga. I was like, no way, I don't ever want to live there. But then my wife keeps getting pregnant, and it's like,
Dude.
now you have all these kids, and you're like, I can't, like the house we were living in was like 1,200 square feet, and it's like, and it was in Glendora, and it was like, I love the area. It's great. The downtown area was cool. We were right next to downtown, but the house was built in 1906, and it's like 1,200 square feet. And like I have German Shepherds and kids, and they're just tearing the house up. And I was like, no, we need a bigger house, like for our kids to be able to play and like have their own like space. Cause it's like the house was always a mess. Cause like their stuff was just
I can't
everywhere.
imagine 4 boys.
Yeah, it was
honestly.
insane. So we were like, let's just let's move out here. But it was like a blessing in disguise. Even though I don't want to be there, it's like I love the fact that I'm so close to my son. Like where it's like even when he's not with me, there's times where I'll be like, "Hey man, I'm getting my hair cut like right by your mom's house. Like, why don't you come over here?" And so he'll just stop by like the place where I'm getting my hair cut. And picking up from school is like so much easier because I have him every Wednesday and Thursday, and then alternating weekends. So like, being in Glendora, it's like I would have to drive out, pick him up from Wednesday at school, and then drive all the way back to Glendora, and then drive all the way back on Thursday, and drive all the way back, and it's all this back and forth. And now it's only 3 miles away. It's like not a big deal.
Yeah, it's hard on the kids too.
Oh, for sure.
Being
I think
far.
that there was a big transition there where it was like, and then there's new kids in the equation, and it's like he's going back and forth, bouncing back and forth, and different stuff. But now that we're in the same city, at least like if he's gonna play sports or whatever, it's like, okay, cool, he's gonna play sports where we both live, and now we can both like figure that out, because that was a big like hassle too. It's like, well, if I want to play sports where I live and you want to play sports where you live, well, how are we gonna work that out? We have them 50-50 technically, so it's like, what are we gonna do here? And that was definitely a hard hurdle to get over. So now it's like, oh, that's one less thing to argue about.
For sure.
Sweet. But
Yep.
so he moved closer, and then you met Mike, and then so what are you doing now? Like, what's the deal?
Well, that breakthrough, that getting hit by the car, catapulted me into a whole bunch of other things. I mean, of course, it kind of taught me some things about the marriage and that situation, but it also, there was a moment I remember, just because I got depressed. I couldn't
bet.
sleep. The pain, depression really stemmed from not being able to go to the gym or do activities and lifting weights and being active like I was so used to doing my whole life.
That's what I just talked about that with a guy I just did a podcast with, how for me with my 6 back surgeries or whatever, like I lost like my outlet. Like it was
Yeah.
like you lose a part of yourself, where it's like before the surgeries, it's like, oh, I would go like spar at a gym, or I would go lift like really heavy weights. I had a way to get like aggression or anger or sadness or whatever I was dealing with. It was like a good coping mechanism for me.
Absolutely.
And being able to get rid of that, was healing. And then when I lost the ability to do
I
that,
know.
it sends you down this nutty spiral.
Really sad. And I had to just try to keep my shit together because I was a mom, still having to be a mom to a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. But it was hard. I missed all my friends from the gym, like, because that was because I had just moved there. I'd only been there for a couple of years. A lot of my network of new friends was either the military spouses or from the gym. And a lot of them were like the same, crossed over.
Yeah,
But I couldn't do that. So people were coming to visit me, but I couldn't. I was sad. It was depressing. And I remember being in one of my therapy sessions, physical therapy, when I was like, they were working on my shoulder, my wrist, my back. And I just was like, fuck this shit. That's what I was like thinking. Fuck this shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm right now I'm making a decision. I'm going to come back. I'm going to use this. I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to come back fitter and stronger and more badass than ever before. And that's my mission. That's my goal.
Fuck yeah.
And so a year to the day from the accident, exactly a year later is the first time I stepped on stage.
Oh, wow.
In a sparkly bikini.
Oh, wow. Wow. And I've seen people prepping. Like I worked with a guy and I was actually going through the process of prepping to go on do a physique competition. And my wife was doing it with me and we were like all about it. And then just life gets in the way.
Yeah,
she got pregnant again.
Yeah.
So that there goes.
You were doing other kinds of cardio.
Yeah, for sure. We didn't have a TV, so we needed some kind of entertainment. No, so like the couple that we were working with though, I think it's Zero Gravity is who they were. I think it's Zero Gravity out of San Dimas.
Mm-hmm.
I may be wrong, but anyway, they were doing the whole prep and everything like that, and it's a lot of fucking work.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is like when I watched like Eddie and his wife Janelle, like when it's like insane. I mean, like, and everything was like the like measuring your food and the amount of water you're taking, and like, and he's like, they tell you like when you get on stage, you're like the most unhealthy you'll probably ever be in your life. You know what I mean? But
well, it depends on also how much drug use you're doing too.
Right, and he was doing theirs was all was no drugs, like it was all like clean.
They did all natural.
Yeah, all natural. Yeah. But still like insane. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. The first show so my first comp was of March 2013. And I didn't tell anyone. I didn't have an Instagram yet. I didn't post anything about it. All of a sudden I just like posted pictures of stage and people were like, what the hell? What? Right. But I just did it for myself.
Did you natural or were you using drugs?
Natural, completely.
Oh.
Now I'm not completely natural now, but at the time, I'll talk about that, I guess.
Yeah,
but 2013, it was really just like taking the weight off. That was like keeping the muscle I had. But I learned a lot that I basically cut too hard and lost some muscle. Yeah. And so, I mean, I still placed, and I placed 5th out of like 16 girls in that first show. And at the time I was 34. And I beat out these chicks that were like in their 20s and didn't have kids. And I'm like, I just felt, that was,
bitch.
I was more excited jumping up and down for 5th place than the first place chick because of my story, because of where I came from. I was just so freaking proud of myself. Exactly my backstory. I was jumping up and down like a fool for 5th place. Awesome. And then I kind of got hooked. It was really fun. It was a good way to challenge myself. And I mean, looking back, I don't think my husband cared for it. He was kind of, he pretended to be supportive, but in reality, when we started to fight and split, he was calling it vain and selfish and saying like, oh, go to the gym and see your fake friends and things like that. And I'm like, oh, awesome. So nice of you to say all those things.
So do you think he was like self-conscious because you were starting to transition, like, physically, and then also, you're spending a lot more time, like maybe at the gym than at home?
Yeah, I was avoiding him, really, to be honest.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I tried to involve him in the early stages, and then it was like, and I only did I've literally done 6 shows. I do 1 show a year, basically, because that's just what I don't want to put my body through any more than that. I think 2017. Last year I did 2 shows because I did like a local show and then I did the national show, and it was a couple months apart. But usually I'm spreading them out. And
prep's like what? Like serious prep is like 12 weeks, maybe?
It's
16?
like it's different for everyone. So a lot of people, that's pretty standard. What people say is 12 weeks, but it depends on where your body fat's at. Depends on how much muscle you have. It depends on if you're gonna take stuff or not take stuff.
What are you walking on stage at? What percentage?
Um, probably like 5 to 10%.
Shit.
Yeah, as a female, it's
That,
pretty
that no, that's
hardcore.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. Um, but yeah, the first couple shows, I didn't take anything until 2016. I just took Anavar, um, oral. It's just oral pills.
Is it hard on you're getting your kidneys
It's
checked and
hard
shit
on
like
your
that?
liver and your kidneys. Yeah, anytime anyone wants to take anything, I'm like blood work, blood work, blood work. Get your blood work done. You got to have at least baseline
Yep.
numbers to
Absolutely.
know what's where you want to be. Um, and then I messed around with some different diuretics that were not great, but
Clenbuterol or
and then just a little bit of HGH. I did try HGH, which is like a fountain of youth kind of
yeah, for
drug,
sure.
very expensive, and I just
Too
thought,
expensive.
okay,
It's like retarded.
it's
expensive.
ridiculously
Yeah.
expensive. So I was like, why am I doing this? I'm not gonna continue this for a long time. So
I did it once. I did HGH, and it was expensive, but I felt like a 16-year-old again. It
yeah,
was like my libido was like through the roof. I was like
recovery for
freaking,
everything
I
is
was a little
amazing.
freak. It was like this is insane, and like I had already had like a bunch of back surgery, so like I was back in the gym and I was feeling fucking amazing. Like I felt great. But I just like again like the cost and like whatever, and I don't think I was really going the right channels as far as like medically. I should have been
Yeah,
checking with doctors, like just get a baseline, see where I was at, and then having someone that I can be honest with and be like, hey man, this is the deal. Like
hmm
I want to take this because it makes me feel great and it makes me feel amazing. And but I want to know where I'm at. I want to make sure I'm doing it like medically where I'm healthy and I'm not crossing any lines here. So maybe I'll get back there one day. I don't know.
a lot of guys are taking just a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and I think we have Instagram to thank for the boom of bodybuilding and
Yeah.
competitions and shows and but the scary thing to me, and I coach people.
Right.
I'm a coach. I take on clients. I've done lots of contest prep people, also a lot of lifestyle client people where I'm
Yeah.
trying to set them up for long-term success, and teach them really how to eat properly. So I'm very careful at who I take on with contest prep, because if I feel like if they tell me that they've had, like, females, if they tell me that they've had eating disorders in the past, and or they have body image issues, or they think that getting on stage or looking that way is going to make them love themselves suddenly,
Right.
and I'm like, nope, nope. It's gonna actually make all those things worse.
Yep.
Because then what you do is you see these pictures of yourself on stage where you're like super lean, and then you're comparing yourself to that
Yeah. It becomes your baseline.
forever.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, well, I'm fat now, when you're still the fittest 10% of the population, and it's so silly. So I'm educating a lot of people, and kind of screening them almost to think like, okay, could they mentally take this?
Yeah.
Could they mentally like have the discipline and also know to separate this from like everyday reality life? You got to reverse diet and go back to normal,
Yeah, for sure.
and then there's the young guys, like, your testosterone hasn't even peaked until you're age 25.
Right.
And, so to me, my usual advice to a guy that's like 21 and says, oh, what should I run? What should I take? What should I get on? And I'll say like, hey, why don't you find out what you can do naturally, see how far you can take it, ride that natural test production you've got going on.
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
train hard, eat right, and see what you can do without it. And then think about it. Get your baseline, get your blood work done, and then maybe start with something. But what's happening now is these guys are just getting a laundry list of a protocol of a guy some guy wrote for, or it worked for himself, and then he's like, hey, this is what I did.
Right.
And so a lot of these guys are doing it blindly.
Yeah.
And I'm always telling people, do your own research. It's
Yeah.
your body. Don't talk to just the bros in the gym. Talk to people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, when I experimented with testosterone and sustanon and Dianabol and all the other good stuff, and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I mean, you get like you talk to the bodybuilders or whatever, the guy that I was getting it from, and he kind of was giving me a baseline of like how to cycle on, how to cycle off, and taking the Nolvadex and stuff like that with it, and then the HCG when I was done, and like there was like different stuff that like I felt was like it was useful. But I don't think it's like, there's different strokes for different folks. I don't think it's like a one size fits all approach, and like maybe if I would have done my own research or whatever, because I saw like I got like gynecomastia after,
Oh
like,
yeah.
and
I'm
I'm
seeing a
having to,
lot of that.
yeah, and having to get like a surgery on my nipples and stuff
You
like that, and
did.
yeah, for sure. So like I didn't know what was wrong at first, and I had like this like pimple looking thing like on, like when I was growing up, I always had like sensitive nipples. I was like, dude, what's going on with my nipples? It's kind of weird. And so like I had like these like rocks like behind my nipples, and like my brother had the same thing, and I was like, I don't know, like we just maybe were producing like more testosterone or whatever than most guys or something. I don't know what the deal was, but anyway, when I started using steroids, that stuff started to get even more sensitive. I'm like, so I'd be like doing preacher curls or whatever. I'm like, that kind of hurts,
Mm.
So I was in a spa here in San Diego actually, and I noticed there was like a pimple on my like nipple. It looked like kind of like a pimple. I was like, what is that? So I go to the VA in La Jolla because it starts getting bigger and like worse. So I'm like, what's going on here? So I go to the VA in La Jolla and they like lance it. And it's like on my nipple, So I'm like, oh
I
man,
just got the
yeah,
chills.
yeah. It was like super, super painful. So he like stuffs it with gauze, and he's like, oh, you need to like take this gauze out and like repack it. And I was like, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not doing that. There's no way in hell I'm doing that. I can tolerate a shit ton of pain, but that's just not pain I want to deal with. And so make a long story short, it ended up getting like super infected. I was in the hospital on all kinds of antibiotics and all kinds of other crazy shit. And like a disformed looking nipple is like, dude, this sucks. So like now it's like the whole like, dude, I don't want to take my shirt off. It looks like silly. And I ended up going to this plastic surgeon in Pasadena, and then he like fixed it all and was like, oh, dude, well, this is the deal. And I haven't had any issues since, but I also haven't fucked with any kind of testosterone or anything like that since either.
Did you tell the doctor in La Jolla about the drug use?
It was a VA doctor, so I was kind of like,
Oh, you got to be. It's kind of weird, right?
yeah, I didn't want to really like let the cat out of the bag too much, I feel like I may have told my primary doctor at the VA, like, I fuck around with this, that, or whatever, I don't know if I shared it with him. I think I kind of felt like, because I didn't know, like, that's not the first thing that came to mind. Oh, this must be
Yeah.
gynecomastia. I
Yeah,
thought
you
it was
didn't
like some
think.
staph infection or whatever, and it turned out to be, I think the infection was just because it wasn't handled properly. But at any rate, I think that had I done my own research, had I like been doing proper blood panels and had like a conduit to talk to and said like, hey, listen, you're in the medical profession. I need some blood work done. This is what I want to do. I've had XYZ's amount of surgeries or whatever on my back, and I need an outlet. I need to be lifting and feel like a person again, or feel like a man again,
Mhm.
And I feel like I didn't have that very, very much. So I just was on my own and I did what I needed to do. I talked to like just bros in the gym,
Yep.
and so yeah, so now here I am, and it's like it's still something that I think about, like, oh, will I ever do testosterone again? Will I ever, mess with stuff? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, right now I probably won't, just I have no really desire or need to. Um, but I think as I get older, that might come back up and be like, oh, actually.
Well, TRT, testosterone replacement therapy is.
Well, yeah, the doctors had me on androgel, so I was taking, having the androgel on my stomach or
Huh.
shoulders, whatever. And then I talked to a endocrinologist, and he was saying that, if I'm taking testosterone, my body, it's not like I have my levels are 500 or whatever. If I'm taking the testosterone, it doesn't add to that 500.
Right.
Like you're basically taking away from that 500, whatever you're giving yourself. And I didn't really understand the chemistry behind it all. So, here I am taking this androgel thinking like, oh, dude, like it is 500, but now it's like, 1,000. And I thought I was like the big, I don't know.
That's
I was an idiot. But anyway, so I think that now that I kind of know a little bit more about the science behind it all, I can make more of an educated decision as to when and if I'll ever touch that stuff again. Because
Yeah.
I felt amazing. I'll be honest with you. Like that's probably the best I ever felt in my life, as far as like even mentally.
You just feel like a freaking lion, right?
Yeah. You feel like a lion, and for me, I felt like almost like euphoric, like just a sense of like well-being all the time. Like there was
Mhm.
my baseline was just good. I just felt good,
Yeah.
and
Well,
I don't know.
I find that a lot of guys, because really you're supposed to do a cycle and then go off the cycle and then
Right.
give your body a rest. And
Right.
a lot of these guys are so addicted to that feeling that you just described
Yeah,
that they never want to go off.
Right.
And then they're setting themselves up for major issues later, heart issues, kidney, liver issues, way later on, that they're not even realizing that won't even show up on a blood work panel now, you
Right.
know? It just scares me because I just, a lot of guys, there's body dysmorphia is a
I
huge
think I
thing.
suffer from that a little bit. My wife always says that I'm body dysmorphic because I'll be, I got too much fat on my stomach or whatever. And she's like, you're great. Like, stop tripping. Like, you look fine. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. And so she always says like I'm body dysmorphic. I don't think I am, but hey, whatever. I just think that I want to look a certain, I think, let me rephrase that. I think I'm capable of looking better than I do. So it's like, okay, if I don't look the way that I think that I am capable of, then I'm not really happy. Like right now, like I know that I could be bigger and stronger than I am. But there's a lot of fear behind like, oh, my back, like 6 back surgeries. I don't want to push it too hard because my whole life, like that's what I've done. I've pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and it hasn't like served me well, in the past. So I'm trying as like a 36-year-old dude, like, all right, I need to like start learning some of these lessons. So there's a limit. Like, okay, I want to push myself to a certain limit, but I want to be smart about it. So I'm not sitting here, bench pressing 405 anymore.
Yeah.
Could I get to that level? Yeah, I probably could. But is there really a need to? Like, I don't really,
No.
I want to be harder to kill. That's the truth. I want to be a dude that's strong, fit, and, well-versed in many different things. But I don't think I need to be benching 405 pounds anymore.
No.
Like I'm good with a couple kettlebells and some elastic bands and whatever. I have a gym in my garage and that's good to go.
Yep.
But I'm so fascinated by the body. I'm fascinated by like how I watch like people transition from, skinny little like dude or woman to like this amazing like specimen of a human. And it's like, wow, like how did you do that? And to be honest with you, I think there's a lot of judgment toward like, oh, well, you cheated. You did steroids. You cheated. And it's like, you know what? I think that's bullshit.
No, it is bullshit.
Because it takes a lot of work regardless.
Yeah, and they don't get it. It's part of the game in competitive bodybuilding, honestly. There's even bikini chicks taking Anavar these days. I don't know if you're realizing that, but a lot of these, novice competitors are taking stuff that is kind of almost expected. So people will ask me all the time, they assume that everyone's tested. And it's like, no. NPC, IFBB, they aren't testing. It's almost it's just part of the game, but it does not take away, it doesn't replace hard work. It does not replace the training, the eating. I will say a lot of these guys running a lot of gear are not paying as much attention to their nutrition because the drugs are burning through.
That's what I'm saying. They don't really need to. Because I remember when I was taking a lot of stuff the last time, my diet was shit. But I'm still rocking that gnarly 6-pack, and like it was just burning through everything. So it was like, yeah, you didn't need to focus on. My cholesterol levels were probably off the
But you
chart.
definitely could. I think that you'll make better quality gains if your nutrition is
I
on
100%
point.
agree.
And what I tell
Absolutely.
people all the time is like, your nutrition should be number one.
Yep.
Get a control on that shit. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Training is also very important, right? You got to get the volume in. You got to like expand the capsules, get the growth.
Yeah.
And then the stuff that you take should be enhancing the rest of it.
Yeah,
but,
it's like a supplement.
Yeah.
It's like exactly what it is. And like a lot of people think that it's like that's supposed to be the end. That's supposed to be the first thing. I was like, oh, I'm taking the supplement.
Yeah, what should I take?
Go. Yeah.
First thing people ask me, I get DMs all the time just from people that I don't know. They just ask me like, I'm totally happy to answer questions when people send me questions, but a lot of times it's like looking for the magic. They're looking for the magic answer.
Pill? Yeah.
What's the magic pill? And they say, what should I take? It's like,
oh,
how about what are you eating?
Yeah, for sure. So like there was a buddy of mine that I was in the military with, and we dabbled a little bit together, and we look back on those days, when we were younger, and we're like, wow, man, like imagine if we knew then what we know now about diet.
Yep.
Because like we look at what we were eating, and it's like, come on, like it doesn't even make sense. It's silly, we had no clue on what the proper, carb to protein ratios were, or, how much fat we should be having or whatever. And I look back on those days and I'm like, man, I could have been way better off, if I would have had the proper nutrition in place. I didn't even know what a paleo diet was even until like probably 2007 or 8. No, 2008 or 9, maybe. I didn't know shit about it. I was just kind of like, I kind of, and I think that's part of the problem with a lot of people that are trying to lose weight and a lot of people that are trying to be healthier is they have a misconception of what healthy really is.
Absolutely.
So it's like, hey, I'm eating this like, protein bar. So it's like super healthy because it's not a Snickers. And it's like, do you know how much sugar and processed shit is in that bar? You know what I
Well,
mean? It's like
these days there's protein bars that are really low in sugar, sweetened with stevia and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm saying that like most people think that there's a misconception if you're not eating a Twinkie, but you're eating something else that's like
absolutely has exactly the same amount of sugar in it.
Right.
I know.
So I mean, I think that's part of the problem is like that there's a lack of like education of like what a proper diet really is.
That's why I have job security.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that's the other thing too is that there's so much information out there now that people kind of get confused where it's like, oh, do I do keto? Do I do paleo? Do I do the Atkins? It's like there's so many different things and a lot of them are similar, you know? But I think a lot of people are struggling to find like what that answer was. I mean, for me, like carb cycling was probably the best response that my body got, like was doing carb cycling. And I had never thought ever in my life that I would ever have a day where I ate 400 goddamn carbs. Like that was insane. Like I was like gagging it down, and I'm like a freak where it comes to like, if I have something I'm doing, like it's like, okay, I'm on a meal prep or whatever. I do not deviate. Like there's
you'd
zero.
be an ideal client.
Yeah. It's like, I don't deviate. I don't play. Like, it's like, no, this is what I'm doing.
It's like an order. It's
for sure.
On paper, it's an order.
I'm like obsessive. Like I guess like extreme would be like, it's like one end or the other.
You're all in.
Yeah. So like when I got off on my drugs, it was like, well, you could wean yourself off or you could do, it's like, no, I'm done. And then it's like black or white, I'm done. And so same thing with my diet. Like if I'm doing something, it's like I will go all in with it or I won't, or not at all, you know? So I think that that's part of the problem right now with diet and nutrition is a lot of people, there's so much information that they don't know where to turn. And there's just a lack of discipline a little bit, you know, because that's part of I think it's the main ingredient, you know, if you're going to be competing and stuff, it's discipline because it takes a lot of discipline.
It does. But I always tell people, I have to educate people that the contest prep is completely a completely other story. It's a whole other ball game as far as nutrition goes. So when I'm taking on a client, I'm treating them like a lifestyle client unless they're specifically going down the but to me it's like I have a client who says on the phone or through text message, like, I want to do a show this date. What do you think? It's like, I haven't seen you. I don't know what you look like. I don't know your body. So I'm always pushing to get more time so I can learn that person's body and how they respond to certain things before we go into a prep. And it also depends on how much body fat you have to lose. You could do a 12-week. A lot of coaches out there are just taking on people and doing 12-week preps with no matter where they're at starting. Yeah. And they're like killing them with like hours worth of cardio a day and really like 1,200 calories or less, you know, and that's what's setting people up for rebound and really distorted eating habits and bad, poor self-image, body dysmorphia, all these other things. And that's why it's like, you got to do it the right way. And treating someone like a lifestyle client is really me teaching them about what foods make them feel the best and what they can sustain long term. Because if they're looking at it like a diet, they're going to go on it and go off it.
Right.
If I'm teaching them how to eat in a manner that's going to get them to their goals and then teach them how to play around with, you know, that maintenance area to keep getting results that they want, but not rebound and gain the weight back because that's what most people do.
It's such a good point that it's a lifestyle, you know, and it's like, you're so true. Like, so right. Like that, if you're on a diet, it's like you're on a diet or you're off a diet, you know, it's like, and you go from here, you go from there, whatever. And I've been guilty of it. I'll be the first one to say like, I was like, I was doing paleo for this and then, but you know, that carrot cake looked really good. And so like, I had to dabble in that and whatever. But if you treat it as a lifestyle, I think you're setting yourself up for success. You know, it's like, no, this is what I do. The other part for me was like getting like all the information that I possibly could. So like, my wife and I are doing that Everlywell test to see like what foods like we have like an allergy to.
Is that a mail-in thing that you
order?
Yeah,
so you send your blood in, and they get back to you with like what your allergens are or whatever. And for me, it's like, okay, I want to know kind of like what foods are inflammatory for my body because what are inflammatory for me may not be inflammatory for somebody else.
Absolutely.
And I just want to arm myself with as much.
Did you already get the results?
No, I haven't even mailed them in yet.
Okay.
It's like literally sitting on my nightstand, and I just need to do the test. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, let me know how that goes. I'm curious because I want to do it too.
Yeah, my cousin did it, and she was like amazed by it. And she was like, "Wow, like no shit. Like I had all these issues, and I think it was like chicken or something like that. She had like a high allergy to chicken. It's like, well, dude, like, no wonder I had all these like, histamine issues and like whatever, So she like eliminated the things that were like highly allergic for her, and I think she noticed like a major difference. So
Yeah, chicken's actually one that a lot of people react poorly to, and they don't realize it because it's so common,
yeah,
and it's like one of the cheaper proteins, and so people automatically default to chicken and chicken breast. And yeah, I've had clients who
I'll be really sad if chicken's one of my things. I'm gonna be so bummed.
yeah, there was
I love
this
chicken.
one chick who actually was in contest prep. I took her. She was bloating and inflamed, and I took chicken out and just gave her seafood like fish, all the different fish, and turkey. Turkey was okay,
Right.
and boom, she was so much better.
It's a trip.
So yeah,
Such
and people, that's the thing. They need me to kind of tell them like, hey, your body might be reacting to this or that, and it's not always dairy and gluten.
Right.
Sometimes it's chicken.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's the thing. Like certain carbs, like certain people can eat carbs and they're totally cool with it. Other people eat carbs and they're like, oh, I'm all bloated and you feel like shit,
Yeah.
I don't really know where my body. I mean, I think I'm kind of versatile. I can eat most things, and be cool. But I'm interested to see like what this test like comes back with, because like inflammation for me is like super important. Just with my back, even it's like I need to know like, am I
For
putting
sure.
something into my body that's like making my pain like worse than it needs to be? So yeah, I'm excited to get those results back. So what are you working on now? Like you're doing clients, and then are you doing another prep like coming up like in the next?
Yeah, actually, I just committed to doing a show in April. I didn't compete all this year.
Oh, actually, I think you posted something on
Yeah,
Instagram about that, right? Telling Mike like, hey, I'm gonna do a show. Is that cool? And he's like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's so true. Like
Yeah.
that post was funny. But I did like really watch him to gauge his reaction.
Right.
Because I did do a contest. I did actually several shows with him since I've been with him.
Yeah.
3 shows since I've been with him. And so yeah, I wanted to see how he'd react to that. If I said, hey, I think I want to do a show again, he was just like, cool, babe, you'll kill it. But if I had said, babe, I'm never going to compete again, he would have been like, cool, babe, let's order pizza.
Nice.
And something like that.
So when you're prepping, is he prepping with you? Like, is he like, or are you guys completely opposite? Where it's
No, like
he eats pizza and you're doing your own thing.
yeah, I mean, he's in the music industry, and
Right.
so there's sometimes where he's got guitar lessons or a recording session or something that he doesn't go to the gym with me. I have to go. It's kind of part of my job. It's part of my therapy. It's kind of part of my thing.
Absolutely.
I got to keep it up, So there'll be days that he'll, some weeks he's only in the gym with me once or twice, and I'm going 4 or 5 days. But no, he's one of those ectomorphs. Like he needs to eat, and if he doesn't eat, then he looks flat and small.
Right.
And so I can tell when he comes home if he hasn't eaten very much because he's been busy or something.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, what'd you eat today? And then I'll feed him a huge bowl of rice and chicken,
Yeah,
I gotta load him up. But no, he's one that he's kind of always in good shape, and he's never taken anything. He doesn't.
Would you
want
be
to.
okay if you did though? Like, would you be okay if he like was like, yeah, I want to try a little like test or whatever?
For sure.
Yeah.
I'd just be like, your dick better not stop working. That's all.
I mean, that's important. You know what I
It's
mean?
important.
For sure. Is there a difference in age? Are you guys the same age?
I'm older than him by 7 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Check you out, robbing the cradle.
That's right.
Damn.
I'm 39 and he is 32.
I think I don't know if that's yeah, I think that's cool. Actually,
It works
because usually don't they say it's the other way around? Like usually it's the woman they say it's like better if the guy's older than the woman's like younger or whatever. I don't know.
I think that's so old school.
Bullshit.
Because I have a lot of my girlfriends have younger husbands, and it works.
I think it's because women mature. I think they say that because women mature faster than guys do, and so it's like they figure like a woman that's older is gonna be like way more mature than a young dude. But sometimes it's not the case. I guess I don't know.
I think it's just timing. I think it's connection. I think there's all these other things
Like
too.
where you are in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And I was scared going into being divorced and late 30s and going back into the whole single world and dating scene with quote baggage, what people would consider baggage as children.
We all have fucking baggage,
right? We so do.
Yeah. I didn't realize that when I was going through it myself. It was like like I'm sitting here feeling sorry for myself. Oh, how am I going to do this? Like, dude, we all have. And what I learned was that we all have fucking baggage.
Everybody has fucking baggage. And I didn't have any trouble getting any dates. So that wasn't an issue, but I was thinking like actually forming a real relationship with someone who was okay with me already having kids, and I got my tubes tied when I had my son.
Yeah.
It was a scheduled C-section, so I had my tubes tied. I had, I was like, girl, boy, done.
Yeah.
And so then it was a little scary going into dating and thinking like, okay, there's potentially another guy who was my age who hasn't had kids yet and wants kids. and I wouldn't be able to
totally.
provide that, you know.
That's a good point.
But Mike is just awesome, and we connected and clicked right away, and it was kind of an organic getting to know each other. And in that getting to know each other thing, I told him like, hey, I hope you don't want kids. You're okay with not having your biological kids because I got my tubes tied. And he said, your kids are enough for me.
That's totally awesome.
Yeah, and
That would make the connection like even
Totally.
better, you know what I mean?
and Mike was actually adopted the day he was born.
Oh wow.
So DNA doesn't dictate love in his world, you know.
It's fucking all good for him, man.
He
It's
is fucking awesome. He is fucking awesome.
Super cool.
But yeah, it was a little scary, and thinking that I wouldn't be able to find a real good relationship again, and it's so not true.
Did you ever date bodybuilders?
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they like super vain and like was it just not?
Yeah, but I was like the first, you know, I was just kind of wanting to have fun, not looking for any kind of relationship, obviously. And I was very open about that with most of the people I was dating. It's like, hey, I'm going through a divorce.
Yep.
I
Here
was
for a good
married
time.
for all these years.
Yeah.
Let's like Netflix and chill, you know?
Totally.
So I was like the one saying like, don't catch feelings.
Yeah, you're like the dude. You're like the dude in
I
the
was so the
relationship.
dude. Better not catch the feels.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
But yeah, so there was a couple bodybuilders, and you know, they look good.
Yeah, but just wasn't. You weren't clicking.
Yeah, no. Like it was all learning experiences and fun, and it kind of figuring out what kind of guy I liked again, you know, because I had just been with the one for all the years, but I did kind of think, okay, no more Marines.
Oh, Marines are bad news. I love you, Marines. I'm
Love
just
you,
kidding.
Marines. Just kidding.
Totally kidding. No, because I wonder because like with my wife and I, like I'm into like hiking and like doing stuff and being active, and that's just really not her jam, you know. And in the beginning part of our relationship, like that was like a transition for me to be like just let go of like, hey, listen, like she's not into doing the things that you're into doing. And that's okay.
Yeah, it's
You know what I mean?
totally
Like, and she brings way more to the table than I do. So it's like, you know, from a different level on a different angles, you know?
Mhm.
And it's like, so that's cool that like Mike isn't a bodybuilder, you know what I mean?
No.
But he's totally into music and totally kicking ass. So
And he's, you know what, like I found to be very attractive is that he's so passionate about what he does, and he's got talent and skill, and he practices every day.
Yeah.
You know, that's his, like, he plays guitar every morning. He plays guitar every evening. That's how he unwinds. But just he's been like, it's kind of ironic because my ex-husband and Mike both have this in common. They were both in bands as teenagers
oh, really?
and like touring.
Oh, wow.
My ex
Super
played
cool.
the trumpet in a ska band, like a punk ska band,
Oh, cool.
and Mike was in a punk band when he was
So
touring.
rad.
He was homeschooled, so he could tour with his band.
That's one of the things I told my son. He wanted to play. He was playing the flute because he loves like Harry Potter or whatever. And I was like, that's cool. You know, you want to play the flute, whatever. Like, I just want you to play an instrument. It's all good. But his grades like kind of suck. So I was like, no more band until you get your grades together. But when I was a kid in 6th grade, I played the clarinet, and then I taught myself how to play the piano because I had learned how to read music and whatnot. But then as I got older, it was like, you know, I'm playing football, I'm doing other things. It just wasn't cool anymore, you know? And I look back on those days, I'm like, fuck, man. Like, I wish like I would have like harnessed some of that musical talent and like actually did something with it. Cause I love music. I love it. Like, it's like the most enjoyable thing for me is to sit with a guy like Mike, you know, I'm like, dude, just jam on your guitar, bro. Let me listen to you play. You know,
Yeah.
like, I love that shit. I think it's awesome. So like the guy that I'm working with that like edits some of my podcast, he's a lead singer in my cousin's band. So like plays the guitar. I like love listening to him sing and watching him, you know, play the guitar. I'm like, fuck, man. So my youngest boys, they will play an instrument. Like, I want them to play an
You
instrument.
will play it.
You're gonna play an instrument,
Damn it.
You know, it's like, dude, you get all the chicks if you play an instrument. You know what I mean? Like, it's like girls love a dude that can play an instrument.
For
It's like,
sure.
you play the piano, the guitar. It's like that's pretty sexy.
That's actually one ad that we're gonna run for Mike's lessons. Like, be the campfire dude. You know, be the guy that
Totally.
can play the guitar at
Totally.
the campfire and like win all the chicks.
Oh yeah,
You know, that's a selling point. You don't have to be a rock star. You don't have to go on tour, but you could get the chicks at the beach.
absolutely.
For sure.
So I gotta ask you a couple questions. Number one is, if you had one person or book or song or whatever that inspired you the most your entire life, what would it be and why?
I'd actually say Tony Robbins. I know it's kind of like generic and lame to say that because he's like
No, not at
so
all.
well known, but he's one that I started kind of listening to looking for YouTube videos on him.
Yeah.
And then I put a whole bunch of money on the line last year, and I went to his business mastery.
Oh, did you really?
I did 5
Nice.
days, 5 days with Tony Robbins, and that was an amazing experience. And I went by myself, just kind of, and I paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
Those tickets go for 10 grand.
Yeah.
I actually knew somebody that got me a discount, but it was 5 days, super intense. He brought all of these amazing speakers in who had their own area of expertise. There was like the marketing guy and the tech guy and the accounting guy, and all of them were so knowledgeable and beneficial. But Tony himself, just like he is all about psychology and like
NLP, psychology.
Yeah, and kind of training the brain on how to make decisions and to just go and do. And he's just really powerful. Like the way that he got us up and down, he would bring us up with music. We're all dancing out of our chairs and jumping up and down, and he's pumping us up. And then he would take us down and tell us a story that would make us all cry, basically. Right. Yeah. And then he'd really hit us with some powerful information, and it would just lock into our brain.
Yeah. No, he's a master.
Yeah.
I mean, when I got off all my my drugs and stuff, and I was going down the excuse me, I was going down like the self-help like road avenue, whatever, because I was fucking lost. I was like, I fucking need to figure this out. Going through divorce, getting off all these drugs, like it was bad. So yeah, Dr. Wayne Dyer and Tony Robbins were my go-tos. And YouTube, I mean, I read his book Money Master the Game, and like he's like there's something about it where there's part of me that I would never want to ascribe to some of the things where it's like it's a business. He's selling his services, and then you go to one seminar, and then if you want to pay more, then you get this or you get that. And that part, I'm not in alignment with that, and that's perfectly okay. He brings, for me, like so much to the table as far as like accountability. You know what I mean? Like I love his like decisiveness and like just like the goal setting, and it's like, no, you're in charge of your own destiny. Like make it fucking happen. Absolutely. And I'm like I vibe with that. I'm like, dude, that's like my vibration. Like I love that shit where it's like no excuses, no regrets, fucking go get it. And some people don't like that. They don't like that tough love shit, So I love Tony Robbins. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, I was just someone just asked me that question in my story that I'm gonna have to answer that. I didn't answer it yet, but about Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins.
And yeah, I've read his books and I've reread his books. I read them again.
Yeah. The Giant Within. There's he's written a bunch of fucking good books.
Unshakable, I think, is the most recent one.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all it's all good stuff. And what's crazy is that you can download or find so many of his quotes and his materials online everywhere, all over. People are spreading Tony Robbins stuff, but yet people still pay to go see him.
Yeah, that's what's the trip. Like I'll go to UPW for sure. Like I'll definitely go to one of those. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I just went to Wim Hof. Do you know who Wim Hof is?
No.
So Wim Hof, they call him the Iceman, and he's like all about like mindset, and like his wife actually committed suicide, and he was heartbroken. He was like, I was fucking heartbroken, and that was part of his story as to trying to find out like I need to change the mold here. I need to figure out a way. The medical system is broken. Science is broken. It needs to be rewritten. And so he found a way to like just meditate his mind to where like he could heat up his internal organs and everything else and emit heat when he was submerged in ice. And so they call him the Iceman. And he does this breathing technique called the Wim Hof breathing technique. And there's this breathing that you'll do and whatever. And he tells people, he's like, dude, this seems so simple. It fucking is. Just nobody wants to do it. They want to buy into a pill. They want to buy into something else. But this is the truth. You know, a cold shower a day keeps the doctor away. And like he goes through this whole thing. But I don't know how I got on Wim Hof right now. But I think we're talking about Tony Robbins. And you think of like self-help and like whatever.
Totally.
But anyway, I'm sorry. I just went off on a tangent.
Tony, like something that I took away from Tony is that he has daily habits that set him up to be who he is, Tony Robbins. Yeah. And he, but of course, like, I mean, he jumps on his trampoline every morning. He dunks into his cold. Yep. He has this like cold tank that he dunks himself in every morning. But he's got rituals, and it made me kind of tap more into my rituals that made me, what was going to make me a productive human, what was going to make me keep up with my business and my clients and be a good mom and run the house and all those things. And it was like daily habits.
Yeah.
And, I already had the eating well and training in the gym, but then I needed to train my brain more, and I know that I already have a strong mindset just from what I've been through. And that decision from my breakthrough, was pretty empowering.
Yeah. I think routines are like clutch. And I think that there's a guy, Admiral McRaven, he wrote a book called, or he did a speech at University of Texas commencement, Make Your Bed. So if you want to change the world, make your bed. And his whole point is like, start your day completing a task.
Yes.
And that's getting up and making your fucking bed.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're so like, I think most people, myself included, I get stuck in the same shit where you get stuck in a routine of like complacency almost, where it's like, you're just going through the motions. You just, I get up with the kids, I do this, I do that. And you don't ever shake that routine. It's like, it becomes habit. It becomes like your comfort zone. It's like, okay, I'm comfortable doing these same things every single day. And when you shake that up, it's a little unsettling. It's like, oh shit. Like, so like now when I get up, it's like, okay, when I wake up in the morning, I need to make my bed and I need to have a glass of water, like immediately when I get up, and then I'm going to go take my cold shower. So you like, just kind of like do like a routine differently, like, whether it be a breathing technique, a breathing exercise, whatever it may be, but you definitely need a fucking routine if you want to be successful.
Yep.
And I don't know, following Tony Robbins and the guys that he follows, and they're all pretty much saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Like the rules to success, and you're going to hear that a lot is a routine, is having a routine and sticking to it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to ask you is, I've reworded it a couple times. The first thing I said was, oh, if you have any regrets in your life, like what would they be and why? And the reason I was asking that was because I want to learn from other people's mistakes to try and make myself, like, to make me be a better human and not make the same mistakes. But I reword it so it sounds a little bit more positive.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if there was something in your life that you went through, a heartache, something that you wish that like the people that you care about the most, or even if your clients or whoever, that you want to save them, spare them the heartache, spare them just save them the heartache.
Regret,
The regret. Like, what would it be and why? Like, what would that lesson be that you could teach somebody?
Probably not telling people how much they mean to me when they're still there.
Fucking huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because now, like my grandfather just passed away at 94. So all of my grandparents are now gone. And my grandmother was just 2 years before that. And, I just felt like there's so much I wanted to say to her.
Right.
And it was too late because she was already like incapacitated in a hospital bed, and wasn't coherent, so yeah, telling people, even old friends, or, it's just, life is short, man.
Definitely.
Life is so short, and it's so precious, and people, that's what we have is relationships, family, friends, connections, and so now I'm like super cheesy with people, and I tell them that I love them, even like when they would never expect me to say that to them.
Yeah, for sure. That's it's funny. I when I was out in Iowa and I met with Joshua Coburn, we did the podcast together, and one of the things he talked about was leaving nothing unsaid. Like, he leaves nothing unsaid. Like, he just throws it all out there. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, fuck, dude, like, I'm terrible at that. Like, terrible. Like, I left home, didn't say goodbye to my wife. I was just on my own little tip, did my own thing. It's like, and a lot of, like, I suffer from like anxiety sometimes, where I have a bad anxiety attack or panic attack, whatever. And a lot of that is around like, what if something happens to me and I didn't say the things I needed to say? And it's like, fuck that. I'm not doing that anymore. So like, the things I need to say to people, I'm going to say it. So like, same thing. Like, I sent like a cheesy text message to one of my buddies that I grew up with, and I was like, man, I just want to tell you, dude, thank you for being such a good friend to me. I've been a complete asshole at times, and you've never turned your back on me. You've always been just a good dude, and I appreciate you, man. Thank you. And I knew what his response was going to be. As I was like, I love you, and like, whatever. I mean, it was pretty long.
Cheesy and sad.
Yeah. And I knew his response was just going to be like something simple, and it was like, likewise. And I knew that's what I was going to get.
At least he didn't call you a pussy or something.
Yeah. I was totally cool with, like, I knew that was the response I was going to get, and I was like, it's cool. He's going to be like, likewise. He's not going to get deep with me, and that's all good,
But you said.
But I said what I needed to say, and it definitely made me feel so much better.
Yep.
And same thing, when I lost my grandma, in 2015, I was devastated, like devastated. And she raised me, for a large part of my life. And it was it's like losing like a mom, for
Mhm.
me. And that's what kept playing in my head was like the things I didn't get to say to her. And the conversations we didn't have. And then like, when I would be driving home from work or whatever, I'd be like, go to pick up the phone. And that was the hardest thing because it's like that was when I would call her a lot when I'd be driving home.
Oh.
I'm like, oh, I just want to fucking tell her like how my day was or whatever problem I had. And I was like, fuck, I can't call her. So thankfully I had like a lot of her voicemails that I saved. So I would like re-listen to her voicemails and shit. But that's huge though. I think if more people need to know that because like life is fucking short.
It is.
And I mean, look at your story. It's like you got hit by a fucking car walking across a crosswalk.
I've
with
also
your
had
kids.
cancer.
That's
Didn't even
right.
talk about my
Well,
cancer.
shit, dude. We'll talk about it now. You can't just
Shit.
say that.
I actually was 23 and I was at San Diego State. I was 22 maybe at the time, but and I've got moles all over me. I'm more fair skin. I'm naturally blonde. I have freckles and I have moles all over. And there was just this one mole that was kind of like rubbing against my pants and felt kind of itchy and weird. It didn't hurt, but it just kind of felt weird. And so I went to Student Health Services and they biopsied it. And then a few days later, they brought me into the office and he instead of bringing me back into the one little like waiting or the where they do the appointment, the like little medical
little
office,
triage or whatever.
yeah. Instead of doing that, they brought me into his office with his big desk and his big leather chair with the
You're like in the
little
principal's office. You're like,
yeah, and I'm like,
shit.
what the hell are they bringing me in here for?
Yeah.
I just thought, am I in trouble? Did I do something wrong on campus or something?
Right.
And yeah, he told me I had cancer
Shit.
at 22
Melanoma.
and melanoma.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was pretty advanced, stage 4 out of 5 in the melanoma. And I was so scared.
Oh, I bet.
Holy
Fuck.
shit. And I didn't even
Cancer?
want to, I was so scared to like, I was more scared to tell my mom because I didn't want her to be like devastated.
Right.
I didn't want her to be sad
Yeah.
or upset. And she tried to hold it together. And I just went through all the steps of what the doctors told me to do. And they did some weird treatment on the area. This is on my left inner thigh right here.
Right.
And they did this. This was also early 2000s, 2002. And
Right.
so they didn't have all the advanced stuff that they have now. But I ended up going into surgery. They had to do a wide excision of this area. And so now I have like about a 10 to 12 inch scar on my inner thigh right there.
Yeah.
And then they had to take out lymph nodes and test the lymph nodes.
Holy shit.
But thank God the lymph nodes were negative for cancer. So it had not spread yet. But he did say that, I'm very lucky that I went in when I did and I got it taken out when I did because it could quickly turn into something really bad. And melanoma kills a lot of people.
Fuck yeah, it does.
I don't think people realize that, but it is a really popular cancer.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to be fair skinned to
Right.
be susceptible to it.
I know multiple people that have had melanoma that are like getting like shit removed off of their
Yes.
bodies, and it's like, and thankfully all the people I know have caught it soon enough to where it's not like a major issue, but they have
Mhm.
scars all over their body because there's multiple.
Absolutely. And the most common area I learned is for women, it's actually legs.
Yeah.
Legs are the most common area. And for men, it's torso. So yeah, then I've just been on the every 6 months getting my moles checked kind of
Yeah.
train,
Yeah.
which is, it can be, I was a military spouse too. So it was like VA, I'd get a different doctor all the time.
Yeah.
And you have to be naked.
Yeah.
You're naked. And I remember one doctor like using the back of his hand to like lift up my boob to look under my boob. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? like I could lift it up for you.
Right, dude. Just tell me to lift it, bro.
God, don't
Try
touch
to
it.
Fondle you.
But yeah, I got to get my moles checked all the time. And I actually, honestly, I didn't have health insurance for a while there because got divorced,
Right.
lost medical coverage.
Yep.
And I'm self-employed, I have my own business, self-employed.
Yep.
And it's expensive. It's freaking expensive. So I finally got it. And I've had it since the beginning of the year, but I haven't got my moles checked in a year. I've
You
been
nervous?
Yeah, I made an appointment, so I've been nervous because it's been a while. I have an appointment next month,
Yeah.
and there is actually one on my leg near kind of where the other one was that's starting to kind of look a little funky, and I'm a little scared. So,
Yeah.
but I'll get through it. I've had 27 biopsies to date, so
Shit.
I've got scars all over. Besides just this one, if there's some that are like precancerous, there's different kinds of cells that they see, basal cell, squamous cell, that basically would become cancerous if they didn't remove them. So those ones, they have to do like a 2 or 3 inch kind of excision. So I've got those scars on my back, on my stomach, on my legs, little like scoop biopsies where it just looks like a funky little circular scar on some
Yeah, my wife
area.
has a gnarly one on her stomach or her hip that they took out. Because she goes all the time. Or I don't know. Actually, I don't know the last time she went, but they definitely they scooped the shit out of that thing.
Oh,
And I was
yeah,
like,
it's awful.
yeah. And I mean, I was supposed to go. Like, I got my skin checked, because I'm fair, whatever. I like to say that I'm olive skin, but I mean, you're looking right at me. I'm not olive skin.
Your
That's a lie.
tattoos area is olive.
Yeah, right. So I'm like, oh, baby, I'm Coco. I'm good. Don't even worry about me. So anyway, I got checked myself, and they were like, oh, you have this one that's kind of like, we should probably like check it out or whatever. I was like, nah, I'm good. And they're like, you sure? And I was like, yeah. So I got home and I told my wife, I was like, there's this thing. It's been there forever though. I've had the same mole forever and it hasn't moved. It hasn't changed. I've looked at it. It's my body. I check it out. And she's like, why don't you want to go? I was like, I fucking hate stitches. She's like, are you kidding me? Like, you don't want to go. You don't want them to take care of it because you don't like, you've had 6 back surgeries and you're worried about some fucking stitches.
Stitch.
And yeah, I mean, it's like an irrational fucking fear. I mean, when I was a kid, in all fairness, when I was a kid, I had plastic surgery on my face. And they had 450 stitches in my face.
Why?
I got attacked by a German Shepherd.
Oh, shit.
And so, yeah, it mauled my face. And bite marks on my eyeballs, and bite marks underneath my eyes, my cheek. I mean, I used to be really good looking. Like, I always tell everybody, I'm like, I used to like Brad Pitt at Dog.
Still good looking, dude.
Oh, thank you. You're too good for my ego. Yeah, he chewed me up. And I think that's where that irrational like fear of stitches comes from. I don't mind the stitches themselves, like getting them and, getting stitches put in. I don't mind. It's taking them out that I fucking hate. And I was like, dude, why am I such a pussy about getting stitches out? And I think that's why, because when I was a kid, like, I'm sure that some of them probably were dissolvable, but I'm sure there was surface stitches that they needed to take out. And it probably fucking hurt, It's in my face.
You're a kid. And
yeah, and I was like
you're
3.
Just scarred for life.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's where it comes from. But anyway, I am going to go back. I'm going to get that shit checked just to make sure, because you're like the 3rd or 4th person that I know that that has like melanoma, from, and you're just like, dude, it's just a mole. I didn't know what it was. And it actually turns out to be cancerous, and good thing you caught it when you did.
Absolutely. You have another thing in common with Mike. He actually was bit in the face by a dog when he was 3 also.
Wow.
He's got a scar on the side of his cheek. You'll see it.
And my dad's name is Mike too, by the way.
Oh, there you go. There's all these connections.
All these connections.
We're meant to be.
Yeah, and you have an arrow tattooed on your arm.
I do, and your son's name is Arrow. I heard you say that.
It's crazy.
I caught that.
Yeah. So anyway, where can people find you? Like on Instagram and like
muscle_mom of 2.
Okay.
That's been my Instagram for 5 years since I made that account. And that's my most active social media.
Are you like on Facebook, Twitter?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, Be Well Fitness, but I don't use it to be honest.
I'm terrible at like using multiple.
I can only do like one thing,
right.
and it's Instagram.
Right.
I also was like, I do Facebook too, and I do have a Facebook like page, but honestly, I get way more engagement with Instagram.
That's what I think that's why I stick to mostly Instagram, is because like the engagement's just easier and I'm more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So I do like the where you can click to add like your post to like Twitter or your Facebook page or whatever. So I do that to try and get it in multiple locations so people that don't use Instagram as much can see it on like Facebook or Twitter. But yeah, I'm terrible at like using other platforms. It's hard. It's a lot of action.
Most people find me locally for my business services, like for my coaching, for my nutritional and training coaching. They find me through Yelp and Google searches which directs them to my website, which is bewellpersonalfitness.com.
Okay.
But yeah, my Instagram is like my hub of everything, and there's a link for my website there too.
Oh, so you can go on your website and like sign up for classes? Or...
Yeah, well, I intake everyone the same way. There's a form that I have everyone fill out before I'll even like do a consultation with someone, because it basically there's so many variables to everyone's bodies, and you know. So what I'm doing is truly customizing people's nutrition for their bodies. They're not just like the usual stuff, their height, weight, age, gender, but also what they do for a living, what they like to eat, where they shop, like how many meals can they get in a day. All those things I'm taking into consideration. So I really like to get a snapshot of people, and almost everybody who does a consultation with me or I get on the phone with, they end up being a client.
Fuck yeah. So you guys know where to go if you guys want to start getting ready, get bikini ready. I mean, we're only in fucking November, but it's going to be June before you know it.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I get so excited about this shit, because it's like like I said, I've not met one person that's been on my podcast before doing the podcast. It was like, dude, we're just meeting for the first time. And you're totally fucking cool.
And now we're gonna be homies.
That's right. Seriously, I'm gonna be one of your clients because I need to get back on to I was doing trifecta meal delivery, whatever.
Okay.
That shit's fucking expensive.
It is. You know what's crazy about meal prep companies is that people now, the fitness industry has made it seem like those $8 per little packaged meals are a good deal. Right. But you could make, you know how much food I could make for $8? It's crazy. So I've actually transitioned some people from the meal prep companies are going to hate me, but I've actually transitioned some people from doing the meal prepped service things to doing it themselves. And they realize that it's so much more cost effective and it's not that hard.
Yeah. I think that was the difficult part for with the meal prep stuff is that it's a bitch to try when you have kids and you're trying to cook and that's why that's why people use them because it's okay, cool. I don't have to cook. I don't have to clean. It's a meal prep thing comes to me. I just put it in the microwave, boom, eat it. And that's all good. And it was organic and it's all, that part was cool. And I'm not knocking Trifecta at all. They're actually really good meals.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just that when you do a cost benefit analysis of how much you're paying, it's like, fuck, dude, I could do this a lot cheaper. It's just, do I have the fucking time or do I want to make the time to do it? But
I've got Marines in the barracks making it work. I'm like, okay,
dude,
get a crock pot.
You just called me out and I have no excuses.
You have no fucking excuses.
Seriously.
I've had Marines in the barracks rooms and I'm like, all right, get a George Foreman grill, get a rice cooker, get an Instapot, get a pressure cooker, something like that, where you can just cook on your counter.
Yeah, for sure. I swore by the George Foreman grill back in the day. I haven't used the George Foreman grill forever. Maybe I should start using it again.
They have new and improved ones, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sure we're gonna be doing this again. I think we're gonna I'm gonna be one of your clients, and then you can use me as a testimonial. Hopefully, take my shirt off and be like, dude, look at this guy, 6-pack surgery, just crushing it.
Hell yes.
That'd be really cool.
Let's do it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for listening to My Backstory. Stay motivated and stay connected off the show. Follow at my_backstory_ to be a part of the journey to recovery and to see where your story goes. Or visit us online at hereismybackstory.com.